Hi, this is Gautam. For today's episode, we're going to look at this novel, Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stuart. Author Douglas Stuart, in his debut novel, is able to really weave magic by focusing on something really specific but still is able to address universal themes. This novel won the Booker Prize for the year 2020, and let's dive in and look at how this novel, which is extremely specific, is able to deal with so many global themes. The story talks about a broken family. We get introduced to Agnes and her three children, the youngest of whom is Shuggie Bain. It is set in 1980s Scottish urban landscape dominated by mines and abandoned coal pits. We deal with an industry which has actually outlived its necessity in the developed world. Most men of this region who work in blue collar jobs really struggle to make their ends meet. And without their father's support, compounded by the fact that Agnes is not very diligently taking care of them, we see the children left to fend for themselves because of her rampant alcoholism. And that is when we empathize with Shuggie Bain and see him get lost in the urban wilderness. To continue discussion, first I'd like to bring notice to the mastery of literature which author Douglas Stuart employs. And let's just take a very specific paragraph to, really appreciate his writing. The black slag hills stretched for miles like the waves of a petrified sea. The coke dust left a thin grey coating across Leake's face. It hollowed out his already gaunt features, outlining the thick horsebone of his nose and darkened the fine hairs of his scant moustache. His feathered fringe had stopped bouncing up and down and lay heavy and grey against his forehead. He looked like a man made of graphite, like one of his own black and white drawings. It was slow going, climbing up the crumbling black hill. It sucked up his feet, and with every step it ate him nearly to his knees. The fine jet dust found every opening and filled every space. It poured over the top of his slip-on loafers, their braided tassels swinging up clouds of black like the tail of a dirty cow. On the downward slope, the loose slag raged after him like a hungry wave. Although there was nothing to him, his hollowness still brought the crust of the hill pouring down. The slag shrugged as though it were turning itself inside out, clearing him off and revealing a darker, untouched blackness beneath. Each time the hills wiped him away, he felt more unnoticed, more like an unseen ghost than usual. Now, when I read this passage, it's quite hard not to compare this novel to something which I read earlier, and I've reviewed this in my channel itself. That is Hard Times by Charles Dickens. One comes to understand that even though these depictions are separated by more than 100 years, the poverty which is associated with mining workers has continued to persist in spite of the fact that several decades have rolled by. Now, continuing the discussion on global relevance, this novel is not a representative of just the abandoned or declining coal mining institutions which is present in Scotland, but could be representative of poverty associated with such regions in the developed world. Now, when industries began to migrate to developing nations, because coal is considered as a polluting industry, and good number of developed nations have started moving towards renewable energy, erstwhile industrial areas which were providing so much of support to the manufacturing economy of the developed nations are actually in turmoil. This novel could have been very well set in the raw region of Western Germany, or it could be the Rust Belt which is present in the eastern part of the United States. This novel could have been in Pittsburgh, or maybe in the industrial town of present-day contemporary Detroit, which is in steep decline compared to how it was several decades earlier. The characters seem relatable because they continue to repeat mistakes, and each one of them has several flaws. There are so many subplots involving the presence of perennial poverty, the relationship between addiction and poverty, the presence of child sexual abuse and child bullying present as an undercurrent in the society, and the fact that in spite of the efforts which are taken by the individual, one way or the other society continues to the conditions of the society are in such a way that it doesn't really allow an individual to overcome his problems. It is these subplots which make which make it relatable to the characters and makes it, much more globally appealing. One major irritant to the book was the mother's addiction itself, Agnes' addiction. At one point of the book, you really get frustrated about the fact that the character, keeps repeating the same mistakes again and again, and that you really cannot empathize with the character, which, in spite of all those chances, doesn't really try to improve. But maybe that is the condition of addiction which the author wants to portray, or that is the condition, or that is the proper intention of the author, where he wants to make the reader understand that this is how the issue of addiction seriously is, and when it is compounded and when it is combined with poverty, there is absolutely no chance that an individual can overcome the circumstances. So this is not a novel of human triumph, as I said earlier. This is a novel about dust, depression, and death. And we live with Shuggie Bain, and as we read the pages, it's as if the poverty and the depression from the pages soak through your fingers and then enter your body, and you feel one with the landscape. That's it for today's review. Meet you with the next one soon. Bye for now.